Okay, this is something I was doing with a student yesterday, trying to figure out how to make a menu look a bit more exciting. This is obviously just my test to show you how to do it. As you see, this is where you would put your logo if you wanted a logo. I've made it also so it's in a container, so it basically moves and stretches when you make your website bigger or smaller. Okay, but what the idea is you may want to have a menu like this. It's just a simple website, it doesn't have any drop down options or anything. Maybe we can work that out in the next tutorial. But what it wants to do is to actually do this. Yeah. So when you roll over it, it creates a darkened colour around the object that you want to highlight. Now that may seem normal, yeah, it could be an image or something. Basically all this though is done with CSS. Okay, the only picture is this, the logo itself. The font and the block is all coded. Okay, and you may want to try and do this on your website, so I'm going to show you how to do it. I've actually prepared everything earlier. This is the actual result from the styling, and I'll show you how we build it up slowly, and this is the result based on the HTML we have to develop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start all this from scratch and show you how to basically build it. I'm going to open up Dreamweaver. Whilst it's doing that, you'll also notice that I've included this Google WebFonts, so I'm going to show you how to do that. If I go to a new tab, go to Google Fonts, oops, oh, there it is anyway, fonts. What we have on here, and I've showed you before in a previous one, is a list of all the free fonts or free licensed fonts you can actually either download or use on your web page. Okay, I'm going to try and find the one that I used on the previous example, which was this one, Annie, use your telescope. So I'm going to just leave it there for the time being and come back to it in a minute. Right, Dreamweaver's open. I'm going to make a new HTML and a new CSS, like so. I'm just going to save both of these out quickly. Actually, I'm going to just name this before I save it. DIV rollover tutorial. Okay, so we'll call it. Save that as on my desktop, just because I'm doing a thing. DIV roll over 2. Okay, because I did it before, so I don't want it. Oh, it's called roll anyway. Doesn't matter. Make a style folder, styles, and also make a in the main root, make an images folder. Okay, because that's where we're going to put our logo. Call that index HTML inside our main root. And save that to our styles folder. Just call it rollover or something. Okay, go and save. Okay, close that. Just link the style sheet. Desktop. Let's roll over 2 styles. Select and choose that. Okay. Right. Whilst I'm here, I'm just going to quickly attach that link to the font. If you want to use any of these fonts but you don't want to download them, you just click on the link for the font where it says here use link. You literally just copy that line, go back to your Dreamweaver, and you just paste it in the head section like so, and we'll talk about the rest later when we actually do the styling. Okay, so I can save that. What I'm going to do is close this now because I'm going to develop everything inside BB Edit. You can use Dreamweaver. Okay, whilst I'm here, I'm just going to open my test file so I can update it on a regular basis to show you. Desktop, div role, index, open. Okay, as you can see, there's nothing there at the moment. Right, one other thing quickly, I'm just going to go to my desktop, go to this one, and just copy the logo image, because I don't want to make a logo. It's not about making logos, it's about doing the rollover. So I'll just copy the link in so we can use it. Okay, and back here I'm going to open up my index file, like so. Okay, as you can see, that's the one that I've completed, and that's the one I haven't completed, so you can see how much code there is. Not a lot, actually. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create a few divs to make this work. And so I'm going to create div ID equals, first thing you need to build is what's called I call a container, which is the main element that floats around your page and enables it to center. Okay, that's that. Just then open that up. Then what we need to do is you may want to develop a web page that has lots of different elements, like a header, a main body, and a footer, for instance. So I tend to create a new div inside that called ID equals header. Close that. Okay, like so. Now once you've got that structure sorted out, you need to build up all the elements that are inside the header. Now I'm just going to go quickly to the example that we did before. You notice we've got the logo and then we've got the menu. So I'm going to make two blocks, 1, 2, menu and logo, and then I'm going to put all the elements for the menu inside the main menu div. Okay, so hide that. First thing is div ID equals logo, let's call it. Okay, and close that. Okay, next line, div ID equals menu. Okay, you can call these whatever you want. I'm just doing it simpler to make you understand how this works. Okay, inside the menu now, what we have to do is define some divs for the actual menu items, but we'll call this a class instead. Okay, like so. And we're going to call it menu item. Oops, item. Close that. I'm just going to cheat a little bit and copy paste all this 5 times. Okay, and then what we can do in here is to give them names. For instance, home. What did I do for the other one? About us. Gallery. These are just typical things you may have on a website. They may not be necessarily on your website, so you can change them whenever you want. Download and contact. Okay, there's a good example. Now, before I start doing all the styling, I need to tell you something that happens here. First of all, when you look at it inside a browser, nothing gets displayed you want it to. That's a normal view of a div because we haven't styled it yet. But there is an issue when you make divs and you put them next to each other. For some reason they have an invisible margin or border padding or something, border maybe, and it makes it so that the width isn't exactly the width that you choose. And the only way to deal with this is mainly because what happens inside any option is it sees the actual line return as an actual space between the two objects. It's not actually on the div, and it's not actually apparent on the web page. So what you have to do is actually line all your divs up in a continuous line code, else it's not going to do the styling correctly. Okay, now I'm going to put the logo in. Just to make my life a lot quicker, I'm just going to copy the link from the previous one, because it's in roughly the same place but on a different folder, like so. And if I do a quick check in there, you won't see it but you can tell it's there because obviously it's moved all this down, and there it is, logo. Okay, so let's get on with the styling. The way I'm going to style this is I'm actually going to use CSS Edit. I love this program. So I'm going to add the file to index, open the style sheet, like so. And you can see nothing in the style sheet, so I'm going to start building this up to make it look like that. Alright, there's a few things you do automatically when you build up a style sheet to allow certain aspects of the browser to not affect your design. If you're designing a white website, you don't notice this, but there is a slight margin and padding to the edge of your browser, and that's why this, for instance, is not exactly against the line. So you have to get rid of this, and the way you do this is you type in body, comma, HTML, then open your brackets, and then you just simply put in padding, a global padding, and put it to 0, and put margin, and put a global one of 0 on there as well. Okay, what that does, you notice it's moved it to there. Also, what it's done, and you can't see, is it's put all the divs up into that top left corner, but because we've got the image there, you can see now it's in the top left corner. Okay, I want to colour the background. I'm just going to put a colour, so we don't need to do anything else. I'm just going to give it a grey colour like the other one, like so we can see our logo. Okay. Now, once we've done that, we need to also make it so that we can see the website as 100% of your browser size, because as we're building it, you notice we haven't got any data below where it says contact, for instance, so it's not going to show any information. This can be problematic if you colorize your container, for instance, because it'll only be the height of your actual contacts unless you change certain aspects. Okay, so what we'll do is put HTML, open it again, and just literally put height equals 100%. Okay, like so. That's just enough to basically allow it to then force the browser to see 100% of your web page. Next thing we need to do is to do something with a container. Remember, it was an ID, so just put container, open it. Again, we need to do the same with this, because we've got to force the container to be the same height as the browser as well. Okay, and we're going to have to put it in the middle. So we're going to put margin auto, and what that does is it forces everything to go into the center of your web page. Okay, this doesn't seem to want to do it because we haven't got a width at the moment. Okay, so what we've got to do is give it a width. I think I'll give it 800. I'm going to have to check the other one because I want it to be exactly the same. So container 805. Okay, 805 pixels. Okay, and now you'll notice it's forced everything to go into the center. So when you resize everything, it moves your browser accordingly. Okay, so that's everything we need to do to set up the process. Next thing we need to do is obviously get all these in a line across here instead of toggled down. And the way we do that is we've got to affect two different things. And just to save time in this tutorial, I'm going to copy paste things from my other example because I can just code it, but it takes a bit of time to understand what's happening. Okay, so here you'll notice I've set up, it's automatically updated it, because that's the great thing about CSS Edit. Okay, but what I've done is I've done an array of the different attributes that I want to affect. Okay, and what I've basically done is done a little hack that doesn't show inside Dreamweaver, and that's why I tend to use programs like this, because it sees the update automatically. And all it's doing is it's forcing everything to move up next to each other, because what happens with divs is they have to be stacked vertically and not horizontally aligned. Okay, and this is just a little hack that allows you to build it up that way. And if you noticed quickly when I was doing the other one, I need to also build in another thing, because I had an option called header, like that, which I didn't actually build into the I did, there it is, header. Okay, so what I have to do is to give that the same width as the container, like so. And that's everything set up. Now what we've got to do is the main task of styling these. Okay, and the way we do this is we give it the values that we want for the actual font and styling and everything like that, and then we give it the href coding to style it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is, if you look at my previous one, we're down to here, so we've got the logo. You can, if you want to, you don't need to do that because it's got a picture in the foreground, but if you wanted to, you can set the width of the logo. Okay, like so. So we're just down to there, and everything else below this is going to style these elements. Okay, again, I've given the actual menu a width, okay, which can help as well to fit it into where it needs to go. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make each of these 100 pixels wide. So I'm going to try and do everything by hand now from here. So you remember what we did is we had a class instead, which was menu item. Okay, and I'm going to open that. And what I'm going to do for that is give it a width of 100 each. Okay, you notice it's spread them all automatically. I'm also going to give it a text align in the center. I'm also going to give it a size of, I can't remember what size I give it to make it a bit bigger. Right, so it's 23 because it's going to make that look a lot bigger than what it is. But what I'm going to do is tell you how to do this other thing now, which is to make the font family. You choose a standardized font just in case, for instance, Google's web page goes down. Shouldn't really, like so. And then what we're going to do is, if you look at the actual coding, it's got this here. What we're going to do is replace that with the one that we chose from Google's font library. And because I can't remember what it is, I've just got to copy that, like so, go back, and I'm just going to highlight that and then just replace it, and you'll notice it changes it automatically to the font we chose, which is really cool, I think. But anyway, change the color. I'm going to make the font, I don't want it that, I just want to standardize white, like so. Alright, that's basically the starting point of the setup of the actual design. You'll notice it's exactly the same here, that the next options we're going to do are the actual rollover. So we use this code called A. Okay, now this is where it gets a little bit strange and complicated, so you have to be very careful with this. So what we do is we do the class again. I'm just going to copy it like so, and then we put the A, which stands for the href, open and close it. Again, we have to now define several aspects, and I'll show you what we have to define. This is the important part. I'll tell you about that in a minute, but you notice what we've got to do is define the width the same, but now we've also got to create it, because we don't want the text here, we want it down here. It's kind of like more designed and following the baseline. Okay, so we'll put some padding in. So what we've got to do now is to take away the padding height from the height of the actual div we're going to use. Okay, going to also then create the white, because you'll notice as soon as we do anything to this, okay, did I put that into the what I've got to do first as well is to add the href to the actual website. I can just copy that and paste it 5 times, and then just close them like so. I tend to use things like BB-edit, by the way, just because it forces me to learn how to code things, because it doesn't auto-complete and things. Which is good, and you don't just press buttons to get what you want, you have to actually type it in. Anyway, I've added all the hrefs now, so when I go back to CSS edit, you'll notice everything's blue instead of white. So what you have to do is get rid of that. And so what you can do again is just quickly change the colour to white again. You notice everything's gone white, but it's got the underline, which you don't like because it just makes it look like a link. Okay, which it is, but you know what I mean. Okay, so what we can do as well, put text decoration none, and gets rid of the white. Okay, that's the first part. Then, as I said, we've got to give the same width to make it work. 100. And then got to give some padding from the top. If you remember, it was 50 pixels. Okay. Now that doesn't seem to do anything at the moment. Yeah, I'll explain that why in a minute. Now, if I go back, that's all that we've done for this section, apart from the important bit I just told you about. And for the actual hover, when it goes over, now this is the interesting part as well. We're going to do two things. Obviously, if you wanted to, let me just copy that part. If you wanted to, you can have the text change color. Okay, if you do that as a pseudo class, okay, which means when you basically hover, it's going to do something. All we have to do is keep the text to white. Okay, but if you wanted to change color, you just change that to whatever color you want. And also, what we've got to do here, if you see, is to do the background color. Okay, so I'm just going to type in background color. But because this is CSS3 we're talking about, we can use this new value called RGBA, which is the red, green, blue, and alpha. Okay, and here what you do is you open a bracket and you define the color you want. So that's black. Okay, but what you can do additionally then is to give it a transparent value, which is the A, which is alpha. And doing this means you then go from 0 to 1. 1 is fully black. Okay, and 0 is basically fully transparent, so you have to give it a percentage value in between. And the way you do that is you do point, let's say for instance we want it 50%, you do 0.5. Okay, and what that's going to do is when you hover over it, let's see if it's going to work. Yeah, you see what's doing is it's hovering over and it's creating a block around your text. Okay, that is not fully black. It's so if you've got an image in the background, you'll see the image through the back of the hover basically, and that's nice if you want to design it. I'm just doing a simple test to show you how to do the actual effect. Okay, you can then obviously design this and style it the way you want. Anyway, you'll notice it's actually only hovering around the actual shape of the letters and not actually moving down. Okay, around the whole block that we want, like we did before, which is this one. That's where the thing I just told you about is very important. So if we go back here, you'll notice it says display block. What that's going to do is forcing the actual A rollover to fit the same size and dimensions as the actual div that it's sitting in. Okay, so all we do is we do a paste in there. Okay, you notice all the things have updated. So it's actually forced the padding which we added, and it's also going to force the rollover, like so. Yeah. Okay. You'll notice maybe some things have changed, like if you look on this one, I've actually added an extra height. What that's doing, if you notice on this one on the test, this is actually coming to the base value of where the descenders are of the font. You may not want that because it doesn't look particularly pretty, so you may want it to go slightly below, and you'll notice this is actually following the baseline. Okay, so if you wanted to do that, you just literally add their height 50, and it just adds some pixel length to the actual height of your box. Okay, there. Alright, that's if you want that. Okay, if you don't, or you want to change it, you can just change the height and value there. Okay, so that's basically how you do that. And if I just open it up in, so it's basically gone from this to this with a little bit of coding. Okay, as I said before, if you want to, you can say, for instance, you didn't want to say gallery, you wanted to say images, for instance. All you need to do is go to your BB edit, type in images instead of gallery, save it. What it'll do is it'll automatically update it to that new font image. And that's better than going to Photoshop every time and changing it all by hand. Now there are some disadvantages to embedding fonts, and I can tell you about those at other times, but you know, it's a nice effective way to make a quick, instant, interesting looking menu. Okay.